Hi students, I hope you're all doing well. So what I wanted to do this evening was to share with you the finished order of construction. As you know, earlier in the week I shared with you the rough order of construction, which basically was the skeleton, if you will, of the structure. And with the skeleton of the structure, you're really building the bones, if you will, of the structure that's going to be providing for the foundation, which is that concrete foundation I spoke to you about, as well as the wood framing that's going to hold all of the bits and pieces together. And those bits and pieces essentially are what I'm going to talk to you tonight, which is what I'm calling the finished order of construction. So when we look at the finished order of construction, you can see up here what I've done for you is I've provided for you a floor plan as well as an elevation, which I'm calling a north elevation. And what I want to be able to do is have a discussion and share with you briefly tonight what are some of the things that we're looking at that's going to infill that rough order of construction that we talked about earlier in the week. So the first thing that we want to think about and that you should need to want to think about in building and planning to build for this home is utilities. And as you can see on utilities, there's a number of things that we want to talk about. The first is plumbing. And so when you look at my floor plan and you think about plumbing, well, first of all, you need to run all the piping to all the parts that require water, correct? And so when you provide water to all those different features, you're going to be, providing water to faucets. You're going to be providing piping and plumbing to lavatories, to toilets, to showers, tubs, sinks, anything that requires a water supply that's going to be part and parcel a finished plumbing item. You need to make sure that you have that scope of work covered. Now also, water needs to be removed from the home. And so then you're going to be needing to identify, water closets, identify the plumbing piping that will carry water to the sewer line that then will expel and remove that water from the home. And so you need to make sure that you have, piping for the sanitary part of the home. So that's the plumbing component piece. And you can see from my plan, there's a number of rooms here that show where plumbing is required, particularly here in the kitchen area where you have a kitchen sink, as well as the bathrooms that I show here in plan. The other utility you need to think about is electrical. In electrical, you've got to be able, again, like plumbing, provide the wiring and the cabling that's going to feed those sources that require that energy, which is going to be light fixtures and power outlets. And so you can see here with the electrical, I've noted here lights and outlets. And so each room obviously is going to be needing a light and power outlet. And throughout the home, you're going to need to be able to do a cost estimate on what it's going to require to be able to do that work for the electrical wiring and cabling, as well as the type of fixtures that you will select for your plan. Next is air conditioning. So each home needs to be able to have air circulate inside of it. So when you look at air conditioning, we're talking about providing ducting and also perhaps a furnace that's going to be able to take the air and push that air through the home. So when we think about ducting, you don't need to get too advanced with this plan, other than the fact that you might want to do some research on finding what it might cost to run ducting in a small house that you're preparing for the Pulliams and get a square foot price for that. And then as well, maybe go to Home Depot and identify what the costs are for a simple furnace that will be able to heat the air and push the air throughout the home. One of the things also to consider is the need for air conditioning. So in the state of Washington, where the home is being contemplated to being built, more than likely there will not be a need for an air conditioner. So as far as requirements go, I believe that the Pulliams will not require an air conditioning, but definitely they will require a furnace. When we talk about piping, as we did with plumbing, in addition, there's going to be natural gas that will be supplied to the home. So with natural gas, you have additional piping that needs to be provided, piping that would be needed for the gas stovetop, because that's where we want to supply natural gas for cooking, as well as we want to provide natural gas to the furnace to heat the air on cold days, as well as provide piping natural gas to a fireplace. So I don't show it here on the plan, but there is a fireplace in the Pulliam residence that we want to be sure that they have, and so you'll want to make sure that we have the natural gas piping for that particular feature. Okay, so that in a nutshell, roughly, are the utilities that are required for a home. Speaking further to some of the more finished order items that we need to identify, one is insulation. So certainly throughout the home, we're going to want to make sure that it's insulated. So on those cold days, it doesn't get cold inside the house. And so when that furnace is operating, people will be able to stay warm. Doors, cabinets, and wood trim. So you can see at the plan that we've got doors identified in certain areas. And with those doors, we want to make sure that you've got the rough count of doors, and that the doors need to have hardware, so the doors have hinges, and doors will also have knobs on them, so you will be able to get in and out of the rooms that are part of the house. So we want to make sure that you've got doors as part of your finished order. Also, cabinets. So here in the kitchen, you'll see that there's kitchen cabinets. You see here there's a center cabinet for the family to engage. Now, again, I might remind you that this isn't a house that we are looking at. This is only for example purposes tonight to share with you the finished order. But you'll see that you've got cabinets. You'll note too that the restrooms will have lavatories. So you'll want to make sure that you have lavatories covered in the restrooms, which is a cabinet in and of itself. And be aware of these types of features that are part of your finished order. Now on cabinets, you'll want to make sure that they have countertops. And particularly, I wanted to remind you that the Pulliams had made mention to me that in the kitchen, they wanted granite countertops. So you'll want to make sure that you've got covered in your scope of work the procurement of granite and the installation of granite countertops on your cabinets. Another item to think about when we talk about finished order of construction is your windows. Again, when you look at the plan, you'll see a number of windows identified. You'll see from the north elevation of this particular home that I'm showing for you is that you've got 3 windows here at the front of the house. So when you look at the windows and when you want to get estimates and pricing for your windows, make sure you've got the right dimensions for your windows, put them on a materials list, and go to your local Home Depot, and they should be able to price that out for you. Going past windows, we have finishes. Now, finishes is the cosmetic piece that we address each room. And so when I say cosmetics, what we're really talking about is we're talking about painting finish on the ceilings and the walls. And so we're also speaking into the flooring. And the flooring is going to be a wood flooring throughout. So in the case with the Pulliam's requirements, we note that there's a wood floor. And so flooring is going to be that finish throughout the home. Now, the caveat on that is that in the wet areas, which is going to be the restrooms, you'll want to make sure that the finished floor is non-wood. So I think a linoleum or some sort of vinyl composition tile, what they call for short VCT, that you want to make sure that that's laid in those wet areas. Now the kitchen can have wood flooring. Even though there is some wet areas near the kitchen sink, it can be a wood floor. So when we think about the finished order for floors, we think about the wood floor throughout the home. When we think about painting, we want to make sure that the walls are painted, as well as the ceilings. The ceilings, if you have a home that's providing for a what they call a hard lid ceiling, you want to make sure that the ceiling is painted as well. Okay? Quick note on exterior finishes. Note that you need to have a roof, So there needs to be a roof deck, and you need to install a roofing material that will protect the top side of the home from rain and snow. We'll also want to make sure that we've got an exterior siding. So how you choose or select an exterior siding that you think the Pulliams would prefer, or maybe you give them some options, make sure you have that discussion among your team. And lastly, we want to think about painting for the exterior of the home. So depending on the type of siding that you get, so let's say you get a cedar siding or some sort of composite wood siding, that when you install that wood siding, you'll want to finish that with a particular paint, and then that would be something that you will want to price. Now, as far as colors go, I wouldn't concern yourself with colors. Colors can always be selected after the fact. So let's just make an assumption that when it comes to the type of color for the paint that is going to be required by the Pulliams, that will be decision made after the selection of the project team. Okay? The last thing I want to note to you is that I do identify a deck. I know the Pulliams are very interested in having an outdoor deck. So if you do find a home that you have selected that shows for an outside deck, please make sure that you identify that as part of your scope of work. Include that in your work breakdown structure, and you'll want to make sure that you've got the materials and the estimates that are needed to show for that nice feature on that home. Okay? So that in and of itself is the finished order of construction. And I really do hope that this has helped you out. I hope that earlier in the week when I did the rough order of construction, that gave you some brainstorming ideas of how you want to put together that work breakdown structure. So I hope things are going well. I'm looking forward to your status reports in the oncoming weeks, and please reach out to me if I can help you out. I'm more than willing to help you out, particularly as it relates to new home construction. I'm experienced in the business, and it would be wonderful if you have any questions that I would be able to give you and provide you answers for. Okay? Have a great evening, and we'll talk to you here shortly. I'm going to be doing a risk management exercise.